Now. Okay, so welcome everybody. So ASABIC Sweden is delighted to welcome each one of you on our highly anticipated innovation funding webinar, co-hosted by Civita Sweden, a European consultancy specializing in, among other things, innovation funding. I think we got some more that will join. Let's see now. I will let them in. Okay, so we got some more participants joining now. So I just started to welcome everybody and saying that we are delighted to welcome you to this highly anticipated innovation funding webinar that is co-hosted by Civita Sweden, a European consultancy specializing in, among other things, innovation funding. During the webinar, we will embark on an insightful journey into the world of innovation funding. This domain can catalyze innovation, drive entrepreneurship, and transform groundbreaking ideas into reality. Civita's commitment to fostering innovation and entrepreneurship aligns seamlessly with ASABIC Sweden's mission to support startups and businesses in space technology and applications. Together, we bring you this webinar as a platform to explore the myriad of opportunities, challenges, and strategies associated with accessing innovation funding. Furthermore, today we also launched and celebrate a new partnership between ASABIC Sweden and Civita, who now will be our expert partner on innovation funding for ASABIC Sweden companies. In this new partnership, Civita brings a special offer for ASABIC Sweden incubatees and alumni companies that also will be presented today. So once again, welcome everybody, and I now give the word to our new partners at Civita, represented by Emanuel and Aron. So over to you, Emanuel.
Thank you, Christina, for those welcoming words. So I'll just commence by introducing myself and my colleague Aron. So myself, I'm a Swede. I've actually previously worked with ASABIC and Christina as part of a project that aimed to present European opportunities within the space domain. It was together with the European Space Agency in the Netherlands and also the Swedish National Agency for Space. I'm also joined here by my colleague Aron. He's a product manager within the domain of innovation funding. He has worked previously on both Swedish, Nordic, and European level funding programs. And just before we move along and present the actual webinar agenda, I'll just let you know that if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to raise your hand or add your questions in the chat. I will keep monitoring the chat so we can actually have an interactive session and less of a monologue from our side. So in terms of the agenda for today, we're looking at introducing innovation funding and sort of the objectives of why it should be of interest to you. We will also then look at doing a bit of a deep dive as it relates to current innovation funding programs. We will also then look at the sort of the key foundational building blocks as part of an innovation funding application. We will also touch upon tactics and success factors that we need to take into account when we actually do work on innovation funding applications. And then at the end, we will open up for sort of a Q&A session where we will have some initial questions, but then of course we will leave the floor to you to ask direct questions to Aron predominantly, but also to me. So I think if we move to the next slide, we'll just give a short introduction to Civita as a company. So as Christina outlined previously, Civita is an international consultancy. We have operation and a physical presence in 19 countries, and we have more than 600 employees. So we work mainly within 4 main business areas or domains. It's innovation consulting services. We also work with public sector entities. We have a private management consulting division, And we also work with helping companies when it comes to their digital challenges. And when we look at Civita Innovation as a specific business area or business domain, we have actually more than 115 consultants and experts spread out different geographies. And we work with both startup, scale-ups, mid-corps, and large corps when it comes to addressing the most challenging innovation needs. So without further ado, I will actually hand over the presentation now to Aaron, our innovation product manager here at Civita Sweden.
Fantastic. Thank you, Emmanuel, and thank you, Christina, for the floor. It's great to see a lot of you, and I understand you represent a wealth and a broad scope of companies. So first, I'd just like to test out a little bit of interaction. So maybe companies working with downstream applications can do a thumb up in the Zoom application. And if you're working with upstream, maybe you can do this symbol. And if you're working with both, perhaps you can choose another symbol in the reaction table. Okay, so Patrick, upstream, Gösta, downstream. We have some answers. You can celebrate if you're working in both directions, or maybe 100%. Okay. Hopefully you'll get a chance to share more about your specific company focuses towards the end of the session. So what I would like to share with you for the next half an hour or so is some specific funding opportunities that we find are probably of interest to some of you. Some of the funding opportunities are Swedish opportunities, and some of them are European. Moving on, I would like to dive into the specific components of public funding and have some exchanges about your experience working with innovation funding, if you have such experiences. And then towards the end of the presentation, we dive into, let's call it my wisdom or my insights into how you can create a successful innovation funding proposal. Moving into what the evaluators will scrutinize in your applications and common mistakes. So that's the focus for the next while. So first of all, presenting some available innovation funding programs. In the top, you'll see some Swedish programs. First of all, innovative startups. It's a two-step process. In the first step, companies in any domain that are early stage can apply for about 27,000 euros. It's a way to get started with their company and develop a business plan and so on. So we would call it relatively low-hanging fruit for companies that are in an early stage of their commercial journey. If they're successful there, they can apply for the next step, step 2, about 80,000 euros. So this is 100% grant money, and it can be used for a number of different costs and activities. Moving on, I would like to share with you a specific funding opportunity called Framväxande tekniklösningar. So it's not specific to space, but I think it could be relevant for some of your companies. So this is also for companies in an early stage. And the purpose of this program is to reach a proof of concept. The funding level is up to 90,000 euros. The purpose is to create and strengthen the conditions for Swedish deep tech. And I believe some of you will certainly identify with that. creating the next generation transformative system solutions. The fourth opportunity that I would like to share with you, it might be a bit of a stretch, but it focuses on Internet of Things with focus on societal benefits. So this is a program where it requires a partnership with a public entity, such as a municipality or so on, to solve their challenges in society. So maybe we can have a show of hands also. I believe all companies are based in Sweden. So first of all of these should be, you would qualify for all of these. As you can see also, there's different funding levels, obviously, and some are more easy to obtain and some are more difficult to obtain. In the bottom here, I presented some funding programs at European level. And again, some of them might be open to any kind of industry vertical, and some are more specific to space. So the first one here is designing space-based downstream applications with international partners. It's open now, it's closing in February, I believe, which is a reasonable time to prepare an application. This is also for companies at a relatively early stage. We're speaking about technical readiness level 3 to 4. You're probably familiar with the technical readiness level, but it's basically a scale from 1 to 9, where you begin with a basic idea, you get some scientific validation for the idea, you begin testing your idea in a laboratory environment, for instance, and subsequently you move up the technical readiness level ladder. So basically at stage 9, you are in a commercial state. At technical readiness level 7, you're close to commercialization. So this specific opportunity is lower than that in order to obtain, let's say, a proof of concept, an early stage of early proof of concept. Eurostars is a program which is open to any industry vertical. It requires a partnership between two European, companies based in 2 European member states. And it's critical here to demonstrate how they both will have mutual learning and contribute to the innovation. Most of our clients here, or some of our clients when it comes to Eurostars, might not have a specific partner in mind, but usually when you're in a deep research and development stage, there are relevant companies on the European continent that you can have value of cooperating. Eurostars allows funding both for you and the partner, so it's very mutual in that way. EIC Pathfinder is also similar technology readiness level maturity. So it's also about developing your innovation at an early stage of its research and development. Up to 4 million in grant, so it's quite generous, and it allows obviously for quite extensive research and development activities. EIC Accelerator is what we call or describe as the Champions League of innovation funding on the European level. So basically, when we work with companies, we always screen the companies that we work with and make sure that they are eligible for the programs. So I'm not sure about where you're at in your company journey. My prediction would be that this is something to aim for in a couple of years, and we'll come back to it. But our suggestion is to work strategically with public funding and begin with smaller amounts and more easily acceptable amounts to take your innovation further, move up the technology readiness level ladder, and become more and more attractive and eligible for these kind of opportunities. So EIC Accelerator, it has an open track, which can be any industry vertical and any kind of innovation. Obviously, it's roughly within the Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. EIC Accelerator also has specific challenges, and they change year by year. And currently they have a challenge related to innovative space technologies and services, but it's probably too late to capture this one in 2023, and we'll see what challenges they will identify for next year. It's highly competitive EIC Accelerator, and it opens up to 2.5 million in grant and up to 15 million euro in equity. So basically, it allows for a comprehensive research and development journey for probably about 2 to 4 years.
Good. Any questions, reflections so far? Feel free to write in the chat, or you can also unmute and speak directly.
Okay, we have a question here. Very good question. The technical readiness level for EIC Accelerator, the company should be clearly within TRL 5 and 6 at the beginning. So in the proposal, you will be very specific and argue which way you achieved technical readiness level 5, at least. More competitive applications might be, firmly past TRL 5 and at 6. But it's difficult with timing here because, it's somehow a subjective case-by-case evaluation where your technology is at. And sometimes a company might have one product which is already commercial, and they want to apply for a new innovation, a new solution, which is at the lower stage of TRL.
I think there is also another question from Dr. Moses Brown. Do the Swedish opportunities fall under the minimus?
They can, but not all programs. So this is a rather technical question. I'm not expert on de minimis, but it's EU regulation, let's say, and so sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. Maybe Dr. Moses Brown, do you want to share? You can speak up a little bit more about your question, and maybe we can find a more decisive answer.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so with because at Remos we have received some funding which falls under de minimis, and according to these rules, we're not supposed to exceed a certain amount after, I think, within 2 years. So that's why I wanted to make sure. So that's why I wanted to make sure that this does not fall into de minimis, to make sure that we are eligible to apply.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid I can't answer that. My understanding was more that de minimis was connected to a specific program. So I don't know. I would assume that you are eligible to apply for all of these, regardless of the grant that you have received.
Okay.
But in that case, you would have to ask specifically the authority from which you have received that grant.
Thank you.
Good. And then we have another question. It relates to, oh, we have a lot of questions. It's great to see. So it relates to Pathfinder. Is it only open to universities or research institutes, or is collaboration between university and research institution and startups acceptable?
I believe it can be it can be between collaborations or one party. Maybe we can look it up during the presentation, actually. Emmanuel, do you know the answer to that one?
I actually don't know, but what we could do also, we can actually follow up in an email, and it also relates, of course, to your question, Dr. Moses Brown, and get back to you with a more detailed answer, and also being cognizant of the time. I think it's probably the right approach, because we have some additional slides and angles we would like to cover. So if you don't mind, we will of course also share our contact details afterwards, and then let's follow up on these questions, which are fairly technical in their nature, so we actually give you the most comprehensive and an exact answer, if you don't mind.
Good. So the question from participant from Furahu, Pathfinder, is it only open to universities or research institutes? So I believe the answer is companies certainly can apply. I don't think it has to be a collaboration between two parties, but it can be, I believe. So let's find a definitive answer and get back to you. There's also a follow-up question here, that there's a funding gap between TRL 3 and 5, and it's correct. Thank you for identifying that. It's called EIC transition, which is an opportunity in that gap around bringing an innovation from TRL 4 to 6, roughly. So if you find that you're probably around 3 or 4, that could certainly be something to look into for you. Thank you for these questions. I think it's super valuable, and we saved some space and some time towards the end to discuss the questions further. So these are some of opportunities that we think are relevant to you. The way we work with companies is that we get to know them specifically, what they have in their pipeline in the 3 to 4 year perspective, and identify specific solutions. And also, I mean, these come and go, they're loops, obviously, and cycles. So many of them come back, but there will be, of course, changes next year, both in Sweden and in the EU. So I would like to dive a little bit deeper into the components of the proposals. So the challenge from your perspective, I understand, is that each time you find a new opportunity, a funding opportunity, it's a different template, it's a different portal, the questions are asked differently, and the format in which you are supposed to submit your answers are different. So it is a jungle, and it's quite difficult to navigate. But I wanted to give an overview of the components that usually are required to answer. So first of all, from the top here, or we could have it the other way around from the bottom, but you need to have a viable problem that you're solving, a challenge that, you know, will benefit the society or the climate if it's solved. So companies working with, obviously, gambling or just selling random stuff which are for no good for society are not of interest. the reason you have showed up here is because you are actually solving something tangible. You're working for a better world on a higher level. So that's where all of these proposals start. What is the specific problem that you're solving? I'm sure if you've met with investors and so on, you clearly define this already. Obviously, so you have the problem, you want to present your solution, you're onto something, you have a specific technology that can solve it, and that's the novelty, that's the innovation, and obviously that's your unique selling point when you meet investors or when you talk to your friends and family, what you're proud about. And obviously the solution, that's where the technology readiness level comes in. Maybe you just have a new idea, it should work, you begin to do some research, you begin testing some hypotheses, begin building some prototypes, and so on. You move up the TRL ladder. That's the solution. And that's obviously extremely important, but there's so many other things to innovation funding. They want to know who are the competitors and what are the competing technologies. How is the problem solved today? There's probably some way in which a similar or adjacent problem is solved today. So sometimes you might say that, well, no one ever identified this problem before, it's completely new. You can't leave this section blank, but you have to describe more broadly in that case how the problem is solved. I don't know if you know about the Swedish company Hövding, which is a balloon helmet. So nowadays, when you ride bike in Stockholm, a lot of people have it and it looks like a scarf before it explodes. But obviously, they would say that, well, the problem is that people fall off their bikes and injure their head. What are their solutions today? Well, it's usually helmets. And helmets they have their benefits and their limitations. The new solution that Hövding has is that it's portable, it doesn't itch, and it blows up when you fall, and it's more safe. So, I mean, they have a lot of arguments why it's better, and it's clearly differentiating from how the problem is solved today. So you need to describe what you want to do. So you really need to think through what are the activities that you need to carry out in order to reach the goal of the proposal. So obviously you will have to adjust based on the budget amount that's available and the scope of the funding program. Let's say you want to move from TRL 3 to 4, which some of the opportunities that I shared are relevant for. Well, then you define what's your current stage, what's the definition of the stage you want to reach within this project, and there will be a number of work packages that you carry out to reach that goal, and you will be very specific about the activities that you want to carry out, and don't mention everything that's around that you have to take care of within the company. Obviously, a budget and a financial plan. So you need to elaborate and be specific about your commercial viability, your business plan, your value proposition. You need to define your customers. Who are they precisely? Is it the government? Well, which governments? And why would they be interested to pay for your services or your solution? How are their challenges solved? Do they even know that they have a problem? Maybe you identified a problem for a municipality or for a specific kind of company that they don't know about. How are you gonna convince them that this is a real problem for them and that you have a solution to it? You will present your team, your company, and your intellectual property if you have. If you don't have, you can still present a strategy of what you intend to patent and protect. Maybe you have some brand protection. That could also be interesting. Depending on the proposal here, they will ask about third-party IP. So for proposals such as step one, the one I suggested, which we describe as low-hanging fruit for early stage startups, they won't go too much into detail about third-party IP. But if you're at the other end of innovation funding, like EIC Accelerator, or some of the Swedish funding programs with more higher amounts of grants, they would certainly want to know what's the intellectual property situation like? What's the landscape like? Is there hurdles in terms of intellectual property that you'll stumble across? So you'll have to do some research to describe that. They want to know about the risks. And it's actually quite valuable to be transparent and aware about a lot of kind of risks. There might be technological risks, there might be financial risks, there might be regulatory risks, and so on. And you shouldn't be afraid to make a long list of risks, describe how maybe the severity and the likelihood of these risks occurring, but also demonstrate your awareness about how you'll mitigate them when they come. So that's really about demonstrating your awareness and that you've thought through and that you have mitigating strategies to circumvent them. If there were no risks, the private money would rain upon you, wouldn't it? And that's why working perhaps both with private capital and public funding can be a success strategy for financing your company, because the public funding is available to bridge that risk gap that might that you might face.
I think we have a question here from Felipe, and I'm just going to read it out loud. It reads: Can the funding fund a patent procedure?
So usually they don't fund like a patent application. It could be a relevant question to ask specific funding programs, but usually it's not really down the alley or like clearly within eligible costs. With that said, some program funding opportunity, some funding programs might fund a freedom to operate analysis. So that's monitoring the IP landscape. So some programs specifically say that that's an eligible cost. But usually companies handle the cost for patent applications on their own.
Good.
Two more boxes here, or three. Regulatory conditions. You should be aware what are the regulations within your context. Gender analysis and sustainability. So sometimes I work with a new medicine, so it's clearly not a solution that's going to save the environment. So I might be tempted to say not applicable, not relevant, but that's not our approach. Our approach is to ace the sustainability analysis and describe indirect effects. So if we have a medicine that reduces the number of hospital visits, that reduces the climate impact or the footprint of the hospital and the CO2 emissions from the transportation, for instance, and then I begin to quantify that in various ways. I would imagine that some of you are specifically working with climate-related issues, and in that case, you have a strong case which is more directly relevant to your innovation. So regardless of what you're solving, you always have that sustainability and climate environmental impact analysis. The bottom box here is the funding need, because you need to explain why you need this program and why you are relevant for this funding program, which might include an explanation why the private money is not raining down on you. Because obviously you want to pitch your idea, you want to describe how amazing it is, but usually it boils down to that the risk is too high. You're too far from commercialization. The capital market is frozen. But still, maybe you have some angel investors and they say, well, we chipped in this much, that's all we can do at this point, but we are willing to contribute more investments, you know, in 2 years, or when you reach TRL 5, something like that. So you need to connect the dots for the evaluator that you are relevant for the program.
And at sort of at the meta level, innovation funding is all about risk sharing. So this is, of course, what Aaron said, but it's important to bear this in mind. So it's sharing the risks with these different funding instruments. So I think we can move on then, being cognizant of the time, and of course we also want to have some Q&A at the end.
Great. So I'll just have one final comment on this slide. Many of the clients that I work with, they're not super inclined to work on the gender analysis, and there might be a situation where actually I recently had a client with a 3-person team. They're all male, they're all middle age, they're, you know, like in tech or business, that's their kind of profile. And what to do? Well, there's so many ways that you can score 100% on the gender analysis, because we look at the end user. So it will benefit both men and women and all genders. The end beneficiary, end user might be different actually. So you look at those dimensions. The way you design your solution, you will take into account gender as well. So it's as user friendly for anyone, for instance. Well, maybe you're working with some consultants, maybe half of the consultants are female and half of them are male. Well, that means that you're bringing in the perspectives from different genders, which they are interested in here. Well, who are you going to employ? If you think that you will grow from a 3-person team to a 10-person team in a 5-year perspective, well, will you be cognizant and aware and you know, try to recruit a diverse team? Doesn't mean that you have to promise that every other person, every other hire will be female and every other will be male. No, you obviously want the best talent, but still you can encourage applicants from different nationalities, backgrounds, and also from different genders. Maybe you have stated your company values. Well, if you haven't, you can do it in the 11th hour before you submit the proposal and just write it down. These are the values that we stand for. The values should be attractive to anyone to come to our company, and we have an inclusive environment and so on. So this is my final slide, and this is some insights after many years of working with innovation funding. And I've also previously been on the applicant side, and I've also evaluated applications. So I've monitored the system from different angles and from different user perspectives. So the first kind of insight is answer the question, and it might be obvious, but it's not. It's quite tempting. If you let's say that the question is this box. It's quite tempting to move outside, like answer part of it and move outside. And let's say you're describing competitors. It's quite tempting and quite frequent that people describe their unique selling point. But the template is asking for competing technologies or competitors. So stick to that and make it very specific to the question. And then if you're doing a competitive analysis, well, you might want to also explain how it differentiates from your technology. But there's no reason to repeat your unique selling point and what's so special about your technology in the competitor section. The next insight is base your narrative on evidence. So maybe you have your own testing results, and you should be generous in sharing your own results. And maybe you don't have results. Well, in that case, find scientific evidence that is relevant to your innovation and explain how it's relevant. You begin to quantify the value of your innovation, and that's highly attractive. It kind of ties into being specific as well. If you're creating a more high resolution optics that can be used in space for something on the ground, well, quantify everything that you know. It makes everything more credible. So that's also part of the evidence. Third symbol here is the brain. So demonstrate your analytical capacity. So coming back to the gender example, not all companies will have a perfect match of men and women, or people of different backgrounds, diverse set of professional backgrounds, and so on. And that's not the case. The evaluators are not expecting that it's perfectly equal, but they are expecting you to have an awareness and demonstrate that you understand it, and that's part of your entrepreneurship. I mean, you certainly, competitor analysis can be also one of those things that, well, our solution is so unique, there are no competitors. That might be tempting for some of you, but then you're not, demonstrating your analytical capacity. You're not doing the research broad enough. You go further away and say, well, this company over there, they're solving a similar problem and they have a pretty poor solution, poor technology, but we're aware of them. So you demonstrate your awareness and your analytical capacity. The fourth insight here is keep your language simple. So sometimes it might be tempting to use very complicated and sophisticated language to demonstrate your credibility and your knowledge and so on. My strategy is to make sure to keep my language simple so that the reader understands the first time they read it. They shouldn't have to read the sentence twice. I could mention here that in the EIC Accelerator, the Champions League, the evaluators they're paid for maybe 6 hours of work to read 50 pages and a pitch deck. So they're not spending weeks evaluating this. They have a specific amount of time that they're actually paid for. They want to understand it the first time they read. Fourth symbol here in the middle is the bricks that connect on each dimension. So make sure all the parts correspond. So if you're making one argument at one end, you have to make sure that another argument somewhere else doesn't conflict with that message. Maybe we can dive deeper into that if it's unclear. The question mark here. Obviously, you need to answer all of the questions that are provided in the template. The reason I put this here is that the way you answer questions in the template will generate new questions from the side of the evaluator. Well, you want to make sure that you answer all of those questions. So I'll share a brief example for you. One technology that I've been working with is using inorganic material. It's in life science. So it's inorganic material that's inserted into the body for medicinal purposes. Well, some of these inorganic materials have in the past been associated with risks, aluminum. So despite the fact that the company has demonstrated that it's safe amounts of aluminum, they're a bit hesitant to be transparent that it's in fact the inorganic material is aluminum. Well, if we keep on saying inorganic material without describing the aluminum, the evaluator will wonder. It's better to answer that question straight away and clarify that these are safe levels. It's equivalent of a vaccine shot and the amount of aluminum that's in there, and it's been scientifically proven that it's safe. Then you answer that question and the evaluator can relax. The final point here is to have a long-term funding strategy. It might be tempting to have kind of a narrow perspective from where you're at now. And you say, well, we need 1 million to survive the year. We're at this hurdle. We want to find an opportunity for this and forget about the long term. Sometimes companies get a bit opportunistic and go for the long shot straight away. Our suggestion is to think, let's say, in a 5-year perspective. How can you bring your technology from 3 to 4 next year? And from 4 to 6 in the 2 years leading up to that, 25, 26. And then in 2027, you could be a EIC Accelerator winner to fund 27 and 28. And then you launch your product or your service in 2029. So that's the kind of perspective that we want to encourage you to think in. So that actually concludes the presentation, and I'm glad that we have 10 minutes for questions and answers.
So maybe we should actually just open up the floor. I know there's been a lot of wealth of information conveyed here by Aaron. So feel free to just unmute and ask your questions directly or in the chat. If there are no questions, we have actually prepared a couple of questions that we could share with you to provide some food for thought. And the first question is of course, it's a very simple one. Do any of you have any prior experience of actually working with okay, so we have a question. Does Civita have experience with preparing tenders to the European Space Agency? That's a very pertinent question. And I'll actually have to get back to you on that one because as I mentioned to you previously, we have 115 plus consultants and we are present in 19 countries. So from the Civita Sweden's perspective, we haven't, but I will have to check internally. Having said that, we are of course working with all the major European funding instruments out there. So I would
not only that. So just building on what Emmanuel is saying, we work with all public funding opportunities. We're working in the United States Department of Defense, for instance. So very complicated. Horizon Europe, Eureka. Obviously in Sweden it's Vinnova and Energimyndigheten, Folkhälsomyndigheten, and so on. So we might not have any, like Emmanuel said, we might not have any references with ESA, but we recognize the system.
Yeah, Johannes, feel free to unmute.
Yes. So hi, Aaron.
Hi, Johannes. Good to see you here again.
I know Aaron since many years, but we haven't seen each other for many years either.
Okay.
So I do want to ask, so if I apply for funding, let's say this first one for 27,000 euros, how can you help me, and how much of those money will I need to pay to you guys, and what's the model that you usually use? I mean, with those small grants, I guess help from Civita will take most of the money granted, and with those larger, it's an easier calculation. So how do you work with companies like ours looking to apply for the lower grants?
So the way we want to work with our clients is ideally we first do like our basic service is the mapping and the funding strategy service. So that's when we get to know you and your companies and what's in your pipeline, and then we begin to identify where you are eligible and what would be a good strategy for you. So that's the way we want to initiate our relationship with our clients and have a long-term perspective. And that's why we've seen that some of or many of our clients, in fact, they come back year after year. They might not be successful each time, but in a few years perspective, there's a high return on investment. For you, if you already identified that, well, this is the most suitable for me, you check the website and you see that Vinnova Innovative Startup Step 1 is perfect for my stage. It can raise 300,000 SEK, and that will make me survive for half a year or so. Obviously, we'll help you and help you be successful. I'm not sure specifically what the fee is for that one. If you want an offer for us, let's come back to you with a suggestion. The way we usually work across the funding opportunities when we work with any of these is that we have a fixed fee and royalty-based fee, a success fee. And this is our model because we want to stick to our clients and demonstrate that we will do everything that we can to submit the most competitive proposal. Some of our competitors on the European continents, they might work only with success fee, which means that it's free of charge if you're unsuccessful. But that means that they will only put attention and real effort into the clients that they consider are the most competitive, whereas the half-baked companies will not get the love and attention that they deserve. Whereas, once again, we screen our clients, make sure that they are eligible and that they have attractive proposals for the specific opportunities, and then we do everything that we can to make their proposal successful. And that's why this kind of success fee model is the most attractive. Now, on a case-by-case, we can change that on a case-by-case basis as well. Sometimes the client prefers to have a fixed fee, and we'll figure it out as well.
And just to follow up there, so the royalty or sort of a variable fee component actually differs vis-a-vis different programs. So for some European ones it's a bit higher, and for some other ones it's a bit lower. Good. So I think it also answered then your question, Pratahana from Furuho. Any additional sort of questions, viewpoints you would like to share? I see we only have 3 more minutes, so I think we can squeeze in one more quick question. Okay, maybe, I mean, we have said 1 o'clock, so let's stick to that one. So just thinking out loud here about the next step. So of course we will send out an email after this seminar with our contacts. So you feel free to reach out to myself or to Aaron. We will also, of course, then follow up with an answer to these specific questions that we didn't have a comprehensive or a detailed answer to. And then I think you, Christina, will share a kind of a small survey as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. We will send out that to the participants from today. And also more information about your offer to our incubatees and alumni companies, so that what your offer is.
Yeah, exactly. So just to touch upon the partnership. So what it actually entails is a 30-minute sort of dialogue with one of our funding consultants to just sort of get the conversation going, where we actually have an opportunity to understand your business proposition even better. And then it also then relates to our sort of initial way of working. So that's what Aaron alluded to. So it actually entails, based on your business project, we will then do a mapping of the most relevant ones, and then we will find the most suitable innovation funding programs where you actually have a higher chance of going all the way and winning. So this kind of ties into this long-term and less opportunistic way of working. And this is also part of our DNA, how we'd like to work with our clients. And it's a proven concept that we've used for many years now. So this is just a very short exactly. So those 30 minutes, they will be, of course, free of charge. And this the actual service, this initial funding analysis, where we look at your products and also the relevant funding instrument, that is actually it costs 45,000, and it's actually running for 1 whole year. So it starts off with a kickoff, a workshop for approximately 3 hours. We have a proper sit down to really understand your business operations, and then we will get back to you with a report outlining these relevant innovation funding instruments. And then this actually is ongoing for 1 year. So if we do find more relevant opportunities along the way, we'll of course keep you in the loop and inform you. And then once we have kind of delivered this initial analysis, then we can have a discussion about specific funding instrument programs and how we can support you within those ones. So I think it's 1 minute past 1. So good job, everyone.
Everybody.
Yes, thank you so much once more, both to Christina and then of course to all the people who took an hour off from their busy schedules to join this seminar. And we of course look forward to hearing back from you during the next couple of days, weeks.
Thank you very much, and don't hesitate to be in touch.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot,
Goodbye.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.